G'day, welcome back to Brupeg. The countdown has started. Birk has arrived on board the boat, which means we have 3 months to get out of Australia. So in 5 weeks time, we're leaving the dock for good in Bundaberg and we're heading to our next destination. Now to do that, we need to be capable of being self-sufficient at sea. So that means power, that means generators, dinghies, all of the associated bits and pieces needed to get Brupeg to be self-sufficient on our own out at sea.
Brupeg was a sunken fishing trawler that was stripped out and ready for the scrapyard. She's just completed a 10-year rebuild that's brought her back to life. With the help of volunteers and funded by our Patreons, community and subscribers, she'll be crewed by passionate people from around the world. If you'd like to be involved and support the project, please consider joining us on Patreon or subscribe to the channel. There's a link in the description below. It's been a couple of months since Birk was on Brupeg. He's been hanging out at home in northern Germany in the middle of winter, so a perfect time to come over to the hot Australian summer. This is a bit of a look around the area that Birk lives in Germany, including the township next to where he's from. Coincidentally, this was the one day the sun came out in Germany over winter. Oh, they'll be talking about it for years. He had a couple of legs to get to us, leaving Hamburg, flying over the Black Sea and getting into Dubai as his first stop to what could only be described as a bloody massive airport. These are all actually spare planes in case these ones here get dirty. Look at the size of these things compared to the people on the ground. Birk then requested a drag race between a Boeing and an Airbus. Boeing lost, just saying. This was the start of a 14-hour leg from Dubai across to Brisbane, Australia.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Brisbane Airport, where the local time is 6 in the morning and the temperature outside is 23 degrees Celsius.
So back to the boat work and getting Brupeg self-sufficient.
Last time we used the outboard, we were having an issue that we weren't getting full throttle. So when you give it the herbs on the handle, we're not getting full accelerator up on the carburetor up here. So if you flick the carburetor with your fingers, you get like another 50% throttle from whatever we're getting here. So there's obviously slop or something in the mechanism. We just have to try and figure out what's not working so that we can correct it. So the plan is to basically get the generator up and running so that we've got that as our backup. So if everything else fails, we can run the boat entirely off the generator. Now there's a couple of issues that we have with Brupeg's power system overall, that everything is a bit of a workaround. Our main engine doesn't charge our house bank. Now a lot of people will be like, what? That's really weird, why don't you do that? The issue is because we have lithium batteries up front, and if we connected that to our main engine, we'd destroy our alternator. It would pull too much power from the alternator and just melt it. So there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can either get a lithium capable alternator. I think it has like a voltage regulator or something in there that stops it from just dumping massive amounts of power into the batteries. It sort of self-regulates. They're about $2,500 for the one that we need to do that. Or you can get a DC to DC charge controller. So you have a regular alternator, charges your start battery first, and then once that's full, it switches over and starts feeding current up into the house bank, and that's what is quite common on boats. However, we have a 20 amp base load for all of our stuff when we're steaming. All of our radar and bits and pieces and everything else, it uses 20 amps, so fridges and everything else. The biggest DC-DC charge controller that we can find is 50 amp, 24 volt, 50 amp. Everything else is like 12 amp, 18 amp, 15 amp, something like that, which is just, it's not going to do because, you know, our load is much, much higher than that. 50 amp is even a bit small. Ideally, I'd love to be able to have it like maybe 70, something like that, so we've got a 30% headroom on our alternator, but we don't have that. I can't find the product that actually solves that. Scott found a 50 amp charge controller, a DC-DC charge controller the other day, but it's the biggest we can find, and it's a relatively no brand Chinese name, so I don't know if it's going to last very long, and I'm pretty hesitant to put $400 into something that we really don't know if it's even going to last a week. For now, we're going to be relying on our generator and our solar to power our boat systems until we can solve that problem. Today, we have to fix the generator fuel system that blew last time we went out to do our trials. We're going to be TIG welding on some hydraulic fittings so that we get a really solid connection to our injector return line. So you might recall previous episodes when we got the generator running, I did a thing, which was a dumb thing, which I sealed up the return line on the injector, and the fuel pipe blew off the fuel pump. So we're going to be getting some hydraulic fittings and welding them onto various parts so that we don't have lines blow off, because the reason why I'm not using just standard hose fittings and hose tails, I don't know if you can see it there, but these little pressed steel barbs are just garbage. They're fine if you've got no pressure in your system. This used to be a gravity-fed system, didn't have pressure, therefore they absolutely worked fine. As soon as you start putting 9 psi from a fuel pump, pipes just blow off. So that's why we're going to decent push lock fittings, hydraulic fittings, proper stainless hose barbs, that sort of thing. So today we're just going to be assembling all the bits so that we can make sure that this doesn't happen again. One of the other problems we had was this fuel solenoid was playing up. Don't quite know why, but it was doing some really weird things. So we've got another one, a brand newie, so we're going to replace it with this. This is our diesel injector fitting, our diesel feed line, and then this is our return line, and you can see how incredibly small that is. So we just pinched that over. We haven't taken any length off that. We pinched that over and then just soldered it up. So you can see that it's just almost impossible to get a hose on there and have it stay there. So there was no real decent barb or anything on there, so there was just no way we were going to get a fuel line, a return line to stay. So my plan on that is to use this here. We've got our hydraulic fitting. I'm going to drill this end out. I'll just nip that end off so that we're back to having like a round tube, and I'll drill a hole in here. We'll put it on there and we'll TIG it on. So that's going to be our return pipe, which will then go onto a nice push lock hose barb, seal up, honky dory, nothing's going to fall off at that point. Now I don't want to strip this injector down in order to do the cutting and welding on this, so I have to be extremely careful not to get rubbish inside the injector. However, coincidentally, this has exactly the right thread to block that up, so we're going to be putting a pressure gauge in there while we cut everything so that nothing can get in the inlet. On the outlet side here, I'm going to be super careful not to get too much grime in it. I don't know if that's going to work. I mean, this is not the correct way of doing this. The correct way would be to strip all of these individual parts down and put a fitting on there and all that sort of stuff, but I can't do that because then I'd have to recalibrate the injector, and that's just getting too hard too fast. So let's just see if we can do it super clean. So one of the things that we're struggling with right now, see this here, we're getting this error on charge controller number 8, and if you flick into it, alright, so current sensor issue, notification, right, disconnect all wires, then reconnect all wires. Also make sure the negative on the charge controller is not bypassing the charge controller. If the error remains, please contact the dealer. There may be a hardware defect. This error will not auto reset. Now nothing whatsoever has changed on the cable, so we don't have a negative that's become positive or positive that's become negative. We don't have any shorts. The voltage coming out of the panels is perfect.
If only you knew how naive you were, historic Damien.
Something's going on internally in that charge controller. So I don't know, we probably had that fitted, what, maybe 2 months ago, and we were already getting a failure with that particular charge controller. I don't know what happened, but I went to disconnect that charge controller and I touched the negative and it fried, and then smoke started coming out of every other charge controller. I had everything switched off, solar, batteries, everything's turned off. I don't know how the fuck that can happen, but I think we've just killed every single charge controller that was connected. So 7 of our 9 charge controllers, and it's like the 7 most expensive ones, have all fried. So what I did was race through and just cut the positive solder on every single one just to stop it from being able to do anything. You can see they've all got basically cut lines. But I don't understand. I don't understand how the hell that can happen.
So it was time for a crew sit down to have a real good think about how on earth this could happen, do a bit of research and have a bit of a workshop as to how can these multiple faults that are happening that didn't make any sense, how can they all line up, and what is actually going on with these charge controllers.
Okay, so a lot of running around, a lot of freaking out, and we now have had a chance to think about what we've done. We made one mistake that is so incredibly 101 and simple, and because of that we've nuked our system. We didn't have a fuse or a switch in the positive line from the solar panel to the charge controller, so we couldn't disconnect the solar panels.
We later found out that shouldn't have been an issue. The charge controllers should have been able to turn off when the battery was disconnected, and they didn't for some reason.
What that meant is when I switched the batteries off and switched all the other systems off and everything, the solar panels were working at full power. It had nowhere to go. The power was coming through from the solar panel to the charge controller, and it couldn't exit the charge controller and go to a battery or a load or something like that. So it just basically nuked the charge controller. So, yeah, we know what caused it, we know why it happened and all that sort of stuff. So we've just turned the big 200 amp switch on to see if any bad stuff's happening, just because we desperately need to get some power because the batteries are flat. Shore power is not keeping up, and we need some power from the solar. Smoke's not coming out, but we're getting a lot of errors now. So number 5 is doing that weird error that we used to have on number 8. Number 8's gone completely offline, so I think we're limping on whatever's left of these charge controllers. Do you want to try and hook a red to a red, like one of the cut ones? So that's Well, 6. That's number 7.
What's that beeping of?
That is high voltage input
This was another random problem that turned up.
from one of the charge controls. Is going to be the one you're working on.
Maybe it was because it came off open circuit.
Yeah, I just got over voltage. Yeah, we're getting 113 volts in it. Right over the, yeah, of course, it's over the voltage. And we're getting that red, that current sensor issue. We're getting it on number 5. We had it on number 8. Number 8's now no longer there.
Right.
Number 5's showing that issue.
Huh.
And as soon as we connected the solar, it's not regulating it inside the charge controller, and it's going to like 113 volts. It can only handle 100 before it starts freaking out, and it's going to 113 and having a meltdown. There's nothing left inside that can be useful, I don't think. So it's replaced the charge
I'm
controller.
not surprised there was quite a loud boom. Well, not a boom, but I don't know, how do you describe it when it psst?
You let the smoke out.
We also found out Victron charge controllers have no protection whatsoever when it comes to over voltage.
That's what you're doing.
We need to get some aerosol smoke and put it back in. Yeah.
How are you doing?
Oh, fine, now that I know.
That's Damien really stressed.
Now that I know what's going on, it's not that... I know we're in no danger because we've cut all the lines, so I know we're not in a dangerous situation, but it's just bloody frustrating.
And so what's next?
Carry on with a different job. Can't do anything more on this.
And with this, we're going to...
We have to buy new charge controllers. It's the only thing we can do. There's a cascade of issues. The inverters we have are too dumb to work with our system. The trouble is that if you have dead flat batteries and you don't have solar, you quite literally can't power the boat up because it won't run on AC. They won't run on AC only. They have to have a battery connected to them before they're smart enough to go, oh, I can power up now. So if you've got flat batteries and no way of charging the batteries, you're screwed.
Trying to make do with what we have.
Yeah,
Yep.
and we've everything's built on a shoestring, so it's kind of like we accepted that we're going to have limitations, and then we're just going to have to outthink those limitations because we didn't have the cash flow to buy the equipment that we needed.
Why is this so hard? It's just the inverters?
It's a combination of things. So if we were not using shore power, our system would work fine. We're trying to introduce shore power, which is not a real left field idea. Oh dear God, we have a separate power feed. It's just that these inverters with these charge controllers, with this shore power, etc.,
Yeah.
it just doesn't work.
The
And
weak link is the inverter?
the weak link is the inverters.
Gotcha.
They're just too stupid. They can do everything just good enough, but they can't necessarily do it well as a combo. The flip side, so on Brupeg we have a rule of thirds. If a job is going to cost, say, $3,000 to get a professional to buy all the parts, fit it, and do the job, and you get a guarantee with it, and it'll work first time, and all that, and it's lovely and great, awesome. But our rule of thirds is it's about $1,000 of parts and about $2,000 worth of labour and other stuff to get that professional job done. So we buy the parts ourselves and do the job ourselves, and if we stuff it up, we get 3 shots at it before it costs us the same as what it would have cost us to get a professional to do it. But we get a bucket load of learning as a result of that.
And look who's here.
Look at Birk, he's happy as Larry this has just happened. Look at him. Pliers in hand, ready to party. We have more data, we've worked out a bit more. So, these charge controllers, theoretically what we've done shouldn't have killed these charge controllers, because when you have a full battery, they basically disconnect the solar panels from the system, which is pretty much what we did, but we did it with a switch. These should have just gone, oh, I don't need to charge anything, and turned the solar panels off. They didn't do that. Something else happened. I think there's more than one thing going on. What we have found is the open circuit voltage is not correct. Open circuit voltage is the measurement of how much voltage the solar panels produce when there's no load on them whatsoever. And the specs of every solar panel will give you an open circuit voltage. So for our particular panels, when we group them up, the open circuit voltage is 94.5 volts, which is below the 100 volt maximum that these charge controllers can handle. It's not much below, there's not a lot of headroom, and we completely acknowledge that, but theoretically it's still below the maximum that these panels should theoretically be able to produce. When you get a colder temperature, you can produce more open circuit voltage with panels, but we're in stinking hot conditions, so that's absolutely not something that we need to factor in. What we have found though, one group of panels is producing 115 volts open circuit. It's nearly 20% above the spec of what it should be. So that is enough to kill the charge controller. So we're going to go and investigate those panels to figure out, is there one panel, so that group is 3 panels in a group. We're going to investigate, is there a problem with one particular panel that's causing a completely out of spec number for the voltage and therefore killing the charge controller. Cover off this here, this is potted, so it's quite sticky and gooey. But what we can do, press that guy down in there like that, and that guy down in there like that, and we're seeing 29.7. So our maximum in spec reading would be 31.5. So this panel is perfectly fine. So 29.7.8. So that one's in spec as well. So 30.6. So that one is still in spec, but it's slightly higher than the other. Not by a lot, but it's still within spec. All right, we're just going to measure between that panel and this panel as a group. So 90.5, which is perfect. Let's go measure it back down at the bottom again. Okay, something doesn't add up. We've just measured all of the panel groups at the back, and they're all less than 90 volts. They're all within spec, so we're getting voltage into the system somehow, and we don't know how yet. So negative in there, and then positive red. Yeah, that one.
It's still 160.
How the fuck? We've got 116 volts there, but we're measuring 90 up top.
We didn't check every single one. Maybe we should.
Yeah, okay. We go, alright, well let's just check everything just so that we can't miss something. Okay, this has me stumped. That one is measuring in spec. That one's measuring in spec. However, that one, and that one are also measuring in spec. And we're getting mystery voltage and we don't know where it's coming from. Okay, so we just found another layer of what, and I cannot stress this enough, the fuck. With these charge controllers, 3 of them are now shorting out. So when we measure from the boat across to the positive, they're shorting out on 3 of the 7. The other 4 are all basically fried. We don't know what's going on there, but this is a new fault that's happening. We still haven't been able to find how we're gaining 20 plus volts over and above the open circuit voltage from the panels that are up the back. Remember, the panels measure perfect. When we get to the cable at this end, we're measuring 20% above what the panels were measuring, which makes 0 sense at all. We thought the obvious answer was maybe a short somewhere. We can't find a short anywhere in the boat. And although we have found a short inside these charge controllers, but that still doesn't necessarily explain why one of them is showing more volts than the other. We don't even know where it can gain those volts from. This is so incredibly frustrating. I don't know enough about electronics to be able to troubleshoot to this level, and I'm really over my knowledge level when it comes to this, but we have to solve it. So anyway, this is kind of practice for what it's going to be like in the middle of nowhere when something goes wrong. I have a knack with finding circuits, normally with my bum or with my hands while I'm sweating. Just found a 90 volt circuit. Wee bit spicy. Yeah, after the first or second shock, we'll definitely put some tape on the positives.
Do not try this at home.
Do it in a friend's boat.
Guys are just working through all the possibilities, and it's kind of making sense, and then it's not making sense, and it's kind of making sense, and it's not making sense. We've got a little list of all the things that have been happening. Nothing's really solving it, so I'm thinking maybe, in Duncan's message, maybe it's multiple faults. What's going on?
We lost all our voltage. All the 150.
So it's going to extremes.
We're going to keep trying to find it. We would have put it somewhere. It'll be in the last place that we look.
It's basically, since you did the zappy thing here, I guess it's nothing.
Did you kill it?
I need to elaborate on doing the zappy thing. So, you know how I specialise in finding where the voltages are? Where all the missing electrons? Like, generally between my bum and my forefinger.
You mean the near electrocution?
Yeah. So Birk said earlier, you should test how many amps are running through it. And being highly qualified in all of the electrics, I said, how the fuck do you do that? And he said, I don't know. And I was like, oh, righto. So I just started playing with things, and I put the probes into the wires, and it went, I was like, well, okay, well, probably won't do that again. It's been a couple of days now, and we've been able to have a really good think about what's going on in this battery box, and we've got a few theories going on. This charge controller is still disconnected, number 8. As you can see, we've made it safe by having positive basically sealed off so nothing can get to it. What's caused the issue in this one initially was corrosion. Have a look at that. That's just disgusting, that cable there. So that cable water was allowed to get in there, and it's basically made an awful connection, and that caused the initial fault, which ended up basically with this cable burning out. Now, something that we didn't realise at the time, but we'd had completely overlooked, fusing between the controller and the battery. That's now changed. We've got fuses on everything. The next side of it is this one here, for whatever reason, has been completely nuked inside. Same with number 7. So these two are dead. The rest of them, we've hooked them up.
However, we've since discovered that they've lost about 70% of their charging capacity.
We're pretty confident that these charge controllers are actually undersized. We didn't know that when we spec'd out the system. We've also found some funny business going on with the positive cable that goes between number 7 charge controller and the solar panels. That was the one that we were getting 115 volts. It should be 90, and then we were getting 0. Something weird's going on in that cable, so we're basically replacing that whole positive and negative cable between that charge controller and the solar panels to resolve that. And also finally our inverters. They're always the problem child that we end up struggling with on this boat. They are doing some funny things when it comes to charging. When we're on shore power, they turn the solar off and they can only deliver 1800 watts maximum to the batteries, which generally isn't enough to keep up with everything that we use on the boat. So we turn them off during the day and we run on the solar. Solar can deliver a lot more power than the shore power and the inverters can do. And the solution to all of this is basically resolve our solar with the random faults that we're finding, resolve that, get more batteries. We definitely need more batteries in this boat, and eventually when we can, we want to change the inverters out to something that's compatible with our Victron gear, probably Victron inverters. So that's the upgrade plan. And in the meantime, the generator is something that we are going to be relying on to make sure that we've got basically backup for everything. So Birk's just mixing up a bit more fuel. We've got the outboard now on the dinghy. He's going to go for a blast and clean the growth off the bottom as part of this test, but I'm going to go for a blast and make sure that we're getting full throttle and everything's working honky-dory. It's been a while since we used the dinghy, so it's good to get it back and up and running. First time we've actually tried to fire this up for a while, pumping everything up.
And then realizing that the outboard has seized.
Bring the engine back up onto the bench up here and do some investigations. So what we don't want to see is rust. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So I'm not seeing like rust and shit like that. I think it's something simple. It's not seized because we can manhandle it over with our manual starter motor. So something else is going on. We just need to figure what else, whatever that is. So we got it spinning. You can see pistons. We don't know why, but it's just incredibly tight. Way tighter than normal. We don't really understand why. So
I would guess it's built up oil.
Yeah, maybe.
Laying upside down and all the residue and oil just built up in the cylinder area.
I think that would hydraulic it initially, but surely it would get easy after the first couple of pulls. Surely it would get easy, wouldn't it?
I mean, it's getting slightly easier.
Yeah.
It's time to put it back on the boat, do a bit of testing.
Than before.
Time for a test run.
nice having the outboard working good again, but man, those barnacles on the bottom add so much drag to this. Used to be scary at full throttle, and that whole thing was just really nice at full throttle. Drives me nuts because the footage is like, yeah.
You think that might have something to do with it? We just come over here to take the barnacles off the bottom. In the river where we are, there's a lot of warmth. It's a warm river, about 28 degrees, but also it's nutrient high, so a lot of growth on all the boats. And this has been in the water for a little while now, so just try to take it off so we can get on the plane.
You're holding my mind in a tight grip when I walk all over you, and your blood is in the water as you roll straight through my
Pretty good.
After all that, it's finally time to get back into the gen set and get that fuel line sorted. This next segment, you have to watch with a grain of salt. We have to do something that's pretty unconventional. So the injector that we're using on our generator originally was a gravity-fed fuel system, so basically zero fuel pressure. And it had a ridiculously small little hose valve on the return line, and there's no way that we were going to get it to stay on there if we try and make it stay on there with the pressurized system that we got now. I'm not expecting to have any pressure in the fuel return on this system. However, even with just vibration and boat movement and stuff like that, I can't see that this thing was even going to stay on there. It was ridiculous. It was about, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch long, 10 millimeters long, and it had a little tiny little bump at the end. So there was just no way that I thought that a hose was going to stay on that. So what I wanted to do is convert it over either to a hose barb or to like a hydraulic fitting, so that we can then put something decent on there and it wouldn't, be an issue going forward. The downside of this is that's incredibly difficult to do on these injectors without stripping the injector completely, because there's O-rings and all sorts of stuff inside that injector, which potentially could get damaged if you do anything with heat. So we thought, let's give it a shot. We'll try and remedy this. You'll see in a minute. However, it was all based on the proviso that if it doesn't work, we can buy a brand new injector for this for $25 US. So if it didn't work, it wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't a great loss. It was worth the try. But you kind of see the process that we went through to get where we did. So this is the T that we need to use. At the shop that I went to, they don't have a hose tail that's going to screw in to the top here, that's the right thread, and have the right outlet size, so it needs to be relatively small to link those two together. So I'm just going to put that in there and TIG weld that in, so we end up with a permanent fixture, which is fine, and then we'll just thread tape these guys in, or sorry, sealant these guys in. While I'm doing that, Birk's over the back. He's going to be adding this ball valve over in the far corner there, which is where we siphon off our fuel from our main fuel feed. One thing I didn't realise yesterday, when I ground this off, and you can see the end that has been completely soldered up. That solder obviously worked its way down this tube a wee bit, which is pretty cool because none of the rubbish from grinding would have gone in there because it is sealed up with solder. So easy way to get that out, tip it vertical like that, and then get some heat in there, like a gas torch or something like that, just and basically melt that solder out. I don't know how successful this is going to be, but I'm going to try my little wee tiny gas flame lighter, because it's literally the only gas torch I've got unless I crack out oxyacetylene. What I'm hoping is to just be able to melt that solder. Okay, I have a secondary plan.
While this is technically 200% more better, it wasn't better enough.
It's not coming out. I managed to get the metal, that sort of nice, almost blue, nicely brown colour that you can tell it has when it gets very hot. And I don't think that solder's going to come out. Alright, back to my original plan. Carefully taking it out. I think we're good.
Now to drill the hydraulic fitting out.
Right, so the OD of this little piece here is 6mm. This is our hydraulic fitting here, and I've drilled it out to 4mm, which is basically that diameter hole in the centre there. But I've also drilled 6mm down a little way so that we can then sit that on there like that, and it's going to be honky-dory. It's quite awkward to find a spot to be able to weld this in because you've got no space to work. It's very fiddly. I think I can get a tack in there and at least hold it, and then we can start twirling it around and welding it properly. How's it going down there?
Not sure if my hands are slipping because of the diesel or because of my sweat.
So overall pretty good then?
Yes. Sounds not that great.
I don't know what I did, but it sounded terrible. Nothing's on fire. I've got a tack and no fire. It is a good day. Like, obviously the tack didn't hold, but there's a point where you need to stop being greedy. Can I have the right part for the job thing? Yeah, that's how things work. Have another go at this. Jesus Christ, okay. Seriously doubt that this is going to work. I just think I'm getting too much heat in it. Would I recommend that you weld onto your fuel injectors? No. Is this a good idea? No, not at all. Are we going to do it? Definitely, because there's bugger all options that I have available right now. That's now tungsten infused. It's kind of been a hell of a week in that just nothing's gone right. Nothing's worked the way that we planned. There's multiple cascading issues happening on the solar things because we build everything on a shoestring. We were probably a little bit undersized on our charge controllers. We didn't know that. We found that out in a harsh way. Corrosion on a couple of the wires. That caused some errors to turn up in our charge controller system. The generator, it's a small generator, and we were trying to do our best to basically keep that generator in the system because we couldn't afford to do anything different. And we were really struggling because we were making lots of compromises to make that generator work. And I did a stupid thing and welded the injector. I shouldn't have welded the injector because it's a dumb thing to do from the point of view of like O-rings and all that sort of stuff inside. But I kind of ran out of options and it didn't work. So that happened. So we have to get a new injector for that generator. Yeah, anyway, so lots of things just didn't work out the way that we were planning. However, right at the last minute, as often happens on Brupeg, at the 11th hour, a few things turned around. I want to show you this. This is a new crane that was donated. So this is going to go up on the top deck of Brupeg. This allows us, this is the base, and that's what it rotates on. That white piece just there is a piece that slides over top of this, and that rotates, and then that flange at the top bolts onto here, and that allows this crane to basically operate. So it's a 2-to-1 crane system, so cable comes out of here, comes back, and then hooks back onto there. And underneath our recycling we have this. So you've got a stainless weight, you've got the pulley and everything, and you've got a stainless weight in the hook, so that's what your dinghy or whatever you're lifting hooks onto, and that weight pulls the cable up and down. So we had designed one up in Fusion that we were going to look at building and everything, and we were building it from scratch, as we often do. So the crane was donated by Robert and Sharon, a couple of really adventurous Kiwis that we had the privilege of meeting recently. They also mentioned while we were talking to them over dinner that they have a generator. So Jess and I are going to jump in the truck first thing in the morning. We're heading to Brisbane, about 5.5 hours away from where we are. So we're incredibly grateful. Thank you so much, Robert and Sharon. You guys have made such a difference to this boat, and we can't wait to spend a bit more time with you guys and check out your boat when we're down in Brisbane.